In a cold city shrouded in secrets, an unexpected encounter sparks bonds and mysteries, capable of forever changing two lives that should never have crossed paths. Winter came early to Pine Valley that year. The cobblestone streets, covered with a thin layer of frost, reflected the light from the antique lampposts, while fog descended from the mountains like a protective cloak. Emily Mitchell watched the landscape through the window of Mountain Cafe, her refuge in recent weeks. She was turning 28 that day, but to her it was just another date on a calendar that had lost its meaning. The small chocolate cake with strawberries remained untouched before her, without candles, without songs. Her reflection in the fogged glass showed a young woman with delicate features, shoulder-length brown hair and honey-colored eyes that no longer shone as before. The navy blue wool coat she wore matched the melancholy she had carried since the accident that transformed her life 2 years ago. Her fingers drummed on the armrests of the wheelchair that had become her constant companion. Before the accident, Emily was a promising architect, specializing in sustainable projects. Now she limited herself to drawings she kept in folders, away from others' eyes. The few people who frequented the cafe at that hour were already accustomed to her discreet, almost ghostly presence, always at the same table near the window. "Excuse me, miss." The childish voice appeared so suddenly that Emily gave a small start. "I made a drawing for you." A girl of approximately 6 years old, with curly hair tied in 2 braids and a smile revealing a missing front tooth, held out a colorful paper. Behind her, a man watched the scene with a mixture of embarrassment and kindness. "Lily, we shouldn't bother people," he said, approaching with hesitant steps. "I'm sorry, she's very spontaneous." Emily looked at the drawing, a figure sitting near a window, with lines suggesting a wheelchair and in the background mountains colored green and brown. The simplicity of the drawing contrasted with the precision of certain details, like the blue coat and the stone necklace that Emily wore underneath. "How did you know I was wearing this necklace?" asked Emily, intrigued, as the accessory was hidden under her coat. The girl merely shrugged with that naturalness of children. "I just knew." "My daughter has a very fertile imagination," explained the man, extending his hand. "I'm Nathan Russell. We're staying at the inn nearby." Emily hesitated for a moment before shaking his hand. Physical contact had become something rare in her life. "Emily Mitchell," she replied, noticing Nathan's green eyes, deep and calm like a lake on a windless day. "Is it your birthday?" asked Lily, pointing to the untouched cake. "Lily," Nathan gently reprimanded. "Yes, it's my birthday," confirmed Emily, surprising herself with her own sincerity. It had been a long time since she had shared anything personal with strangers. "Then you need to make a wish and blow," insisted the girl, climbing onto the empty chair next to Emily without asking permission. Nathan seemed about to intervene again, but Emily made a discreet gesture indicating that she didn't mind. There was something comforting about the child's spontaneity. "I don't have candles," Emily justified. "We can pretend," suggested Lily, making a gesture as if placing something on the cake. "There, now wish and blow." Emily closed her eyes for a moment, feeling ridiculous and at the same time inexplicably moved. She made a silent wish and blew air over the cake. "Bravo!" exclaimed Lily, clapping her hands. "May we sit with you?" "For a moment," asked Nathan, "unless you prefer to be alone, of course." The question caught Emily off guard. Her immediate instinct was to refuse, as she had done with all invitations in the last 2 years. But something about this father and daughter aroused a curiosity she hadn't felt in a long time. "You may sit," she replied, cutting the cake into 3 pieces. During the next hour, Emily found herself engaged in a conversation that flowed with surprising naturalness. Nathan was a nature photographer, worked for specialized magazines, and was in Pine Valley for a project about the flora of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Lily talked about her school in Boston, her drawings, and her collection of colorful stones with the characteristic enthusiasm of childhood. "And you, what do you do?" asked Nathan when Lily was distracted drawing on the back of a napkin. "I was an architect," answered Emily, noticing the use of the past tense in her own phrase. "Now, I don't do much." "Was?" he questioned, without averting his gaze. "Isn't Architecture something you carry in here? He completed, pointing to his own head. Before Emily could respond, her cell phone vibrated. It was a message from her father, Edward Mitchell. "I'm in town, need to talk to you, important matter. We'll be at your apartment at 7 p.m. Emily's face must have shown some disturbance because Nathan immediately stood up. "I think we've taken up too much of your time. Thank you for the company. Will we come back tomorrow?" asked Lily, putting away her colored pencils. "We can't promise that, Lily. The lady has her own life," Nathan responded. "I come here almost every day around 4, said Emily, surprising herself with the implicit invitation. Nathan smiled, a contained smile that lit up his eyes. "Then perhaps we'll meet again." After they left, Emily remained there, observing the drawing that Lily had left. There was something familiar in those childish strokes, as if the girl had captured not just her external image, but something deeper. Upon returning to her apartment, an elegant duplex adapted to her needs, Emily found herself thinking about the unexpected encounter. There was something about Nathan that aroused her curiosity. It wasn't just his pleasant appearance or his calm manner, but an indefinable feeling that she already knew him from somewhere. While preparing for the meeting with her father, Emily placed Lily's drawing on her office desk. It was then that she noticed something she hadn't seen before. In the lower corner of the paper was a small inscription that seemed to be a date, 6/17, precisely the day of the accident that had changed her life. How could that child know? The intercom rang, announcing Edward Mitchell's arrival. Emily took a deep breath, trying to push away the unease that the drawing had provoked. Her father always arrived punctually, as if every minute of his schedule were meticulously calculated. "Emily?" He greeted her with a distant kiss on the forehead, while his eyes scanned the apartment, evaluating. Edward was a man of imposing presence, perfectly aligned grey hair and an impeccable suit, even in a tourist town. "How are you?" "Fine," she responded automatically, guiding her chair to the living room. "What brings you here?" "I thought you were in Boston closing the contract with the Chinese investors." Edward walked to the window, observing the fog that now completely covered the mountains. "The contract is moving forward. I came for another reason." He paused, as if carefully choosing his words. "We received an offer for your grandmother's house." Emily felt a tightness in her chest. The house that her maternal grandmother had left her was the last link to her happy childhood, before her father's business consumed the entire family dynamic. "The house is not for sale," she answered dryly. "Emily, be reasonable. That property has been abandoned for years. The offer is excellent and—" "No," she interrupted, with a firmness that surprised them both. "The house is not for sale, Dad. It never was." Edward sighed, running a hand through his impeccably combed hair. "There's something you need to know about that house, about your grandmother." He hesitated, as if measuring the impact of his next words. "There are documents, issues from the past that might be better left buried." Emily observed her father with growing suspicion. "What documents? What issues?" Edward's cell phone rang, saving him from responding immediately. After a brief conversation, he hung up with a displeased expression. "I need to go. We have a video conference with Tokyo in an hour." He walked to the door, pausing for a moment. "Think about what I said, Emily. Some doors are better kept closed." After her father left, Emily remained there, in the middle of the living room with more questions than answers. The encounter with Nathan and Lily, the mysterious drawing, her father's enigmatic words, everything seemed connected by invisible threads that she still couldn't understand. She returned to the office and picked up Lily's drawing again. Something about that child and her father awakened a curiosity that Emily hadn't felt in a long time. And there was the date in the corner of the paper, a coincidence or something more. Outside, the fog was swallowing the city lights, and a fine rain began to fall, marking different rhythms on the apartment windows. Emily felt for the first time in a long time an inexplicable urgency, as if after 2 years of emotional hibernation, something was finally beginning to awaken. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a Tell us which city you're watching us from. We continue. The next morning, the sky of Pine Valley remained covered by dense clouds, as if the town were protected by a ceiling of grey cotton. Emily awoke to the sound of rain on the roof. Tiles, a constant melody that had become her inseparable companion. Her father's words echoed in her mind, mixing with images of the unexpected encounter at the cafe. After a morning routine that she now executed with mechanical precision, Emily decided to do something she hadn't done in weeks: visit her therapist. Dr. Rebecca Morrison had been following her since the accident, a middle-aged woman whose patience seemed infinite in the face of Emily's prolonged silences. "What a pleasant surprise," commented Rebecca when Emily entered her office, located in an Alpine-style house in the center of town. "I thought you had given up on our sessions." "I almost did," admitted Emily, positioning her chair near the window, her usual place. "But something happened yesterday." During the next hour, Emily recounted the encounter with Nathan and Lily, the conversation with her father, and, mainly, the unease she had felt since then. She talked about the drawing with the date of the accident and her father's mysterious words about her grandmother's house. "What bothers me most is this feeling that there are pieces moving around me, like a chess game where I'm just a piece, not the player," she concluded. Rebecca observed her attentively, making occasional notes. "And how do you feel about this man and his daughter?" "It's strange," replied Emily after a pause. "I feel as if I already knew them, especially the girl. There's something in her eyes. Perhaps it's just the human connection you've been avoiding in recent years," suggested the therapist. "As for your grandmother's house, what does it mean to you?" Emily closed her eyes for a moment. "It's the only place where I felt truly safe in childhood. After Mom passed away, Dad immersed himself in business, and I spent summers with Grandma in that house. He never understood the sentimental value that place has for me." "And have you visited the house recently?" "Not since before the accident. It's closed, but the caretaker, Mr. Anderson, looks after the garden and basic maintenance." "Perhaps it's time to revisit your safe spaces, Emily. Sometimes, to move forward, we first need to return to our origins." Rebecca's suggestion echoed in Emily's mind as she returned home. The idea of visiting her grandmother's house, located on the outskirts of Pine Valley, seemed simultaneously attractive and frightening. That place held precious memories, but would also confront her with the active life she had lost. Upon arriving at the apartment, she found an envelope that someone had slipped under the door. Inside was only a card with a handwritten message. "Some stories need to be retold to be understood." There was no signature, only a small drawing that appeared to be an antique key. Emily examined the envelope for clues, but there was nothing beyond the card. The handwriting wasn't familiar, with firm strokes suggesting a male hand. Could it be from Nathan? But how would he know where she lived? The clock was approaching 4 when Emily decided to return to Mountain Cafe. There was something about that mysterious card that compelled her to act, to break the routine she had established as a defense against the outside world. The cafe was fuller than the day before. Emily maneuvered her chair to her usual table, feeling some curious glances that quickly averted when she returned them. She ordered hot chocolate and sat watching the rain that continued to fall outside, turning the streets into small streams. "You came." Lily's voice sounded like an explosion of joy amidst the cafe's buzz. The girl was running towards her, holding a new drawing. Nathan was right behind, wearing a brown sweater and jeans. His dark hair was damp from the rain, and he carried a camera hanging around his neck. "We hope we're not bothering you," he said with a shy smile. "Not at all," replied Emily, surprised by her own sincerity. "Actually, I was waiting for you." Lily immediately pulled up a chair and sat next to Emily, extending the new drawing. "I made another one for you. It's your grandma's house." Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. The drawing showed a 2-story house with a wide porch and a garden where colorful flowers contrasted with the green of the trees. It was a surprisingly accurate representation of her grandmother's house. "How do you know this house?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "I dreamed about it," replied Lily with naturalness. There's a swing in the backyard near the apple tree, isn't there? Nathan seemed as surprised as Emily. Lily, you never mentioned this dream to me. The girl shrugged. I dreamed it last night. You were in it too, Aunt Emily. You were walking in the garden picking flowers. Emily felt a lump in her throat. Walking? Yes, walking and dancing, confirmed Lily, beginning to colour another drawing she had brought. Nathan and Emily exchanged a significant look. He seemed genuinely disconcerted by his daughter's words. Did you send me a card today? Asked Emily, carefully observing his reaction. Card? No, I didn't send anything, replied Nathan, furrowing his brow. What kind of card? Emily hesitated, deciding not to reveal more details for now. Just a belated birthday card, probably from an acquaintance. The conversation flowed to lighter topics. Nathan talked about his work as a photographer, showing some images he had captured that morning in the mountains around the town. Emily, in turn, surprised herself by talking about her architectural projects, something she had avoided mentioning since the accident. You should see Aunt Emily's drawings, Daddy, commented Lily, without raising her eyes from her own drawing. She makes houses that look like fairy tales. Again, Emily felt that unease. How could Lily know about her projects? It was as if the girl had access to information she shouldn't have. Do you have any projects to show me? Asked Nathan with genuine interest. I don't draw anymore, replied Emily automatically, the response she gave to everyone who touched on the subject. That's not true, contested Lily, now looking directly at her. You drew last night, a garden with a hedge maze. The hot chocolate that Emily was bringing to her lips stopped midway. Indeed, the night before, after her father's visit, she had sketched the garden of her grandmother's house, including the small hedge maze she had so loved in childhood. Lily, stop making things up, reprimanded Nathan, clearly embarrassed. I'm not making things up, protested the girl. I saw it in my dream. Emily placed the cup on the table, trying to order her thoughts. It's okay, Nathan. Children have an incredible imagination. Turning to Lily, she asked gently, What else did you see in this dream? The girl thought for a moment with a serious expression. I saw a box hidden under the floorboards in the tower room. Inside there are old letters and a photograph torn in half. Nathan seemed increasingly uncomfortable. I think we've taken too much of your time, Emily. Lily, it's time to go. But I haven't finished my drawing, protested the girl. You can finish it tomorrow if Emily doesn't mind meeting us again. Emily realized that Nathan was trying to end the conversation, perhaps as disturbed as she was by the inexplicable coincidences. Of course I don't mind, she replied, watching as Lily reluctantly put away her colored pencils. When they were already at the door, Emily called out, Nathan, do you know the Pine Haven Lodge? He stopped, turning with a curious expression. No, why? Nothing important, I just heard good things about it. The lie came easily. Emily wanted to test something. Pine Haven Lodge didn't exist. It was a name she had just invented. After they left, Emily remained in the cafe for another hour, watching the rain and reflecting on the strange events. There was something about Nathan and Lily that didn't fit the narrative of casual tourists. The coincidences were too numerous to be ignored. Upon returning to the apartment, Emily made a decision. Tomorrow she would visit her grandmother's house. If there were answers to be found, they might be there, in the place that held her most precious memories. As she prepared for bed, she noticed something on her work table that wasn't there before. A small antique key, exactly like the one drawn on the mysterious card. Beside it was a note written in the same handwriting. Some doors need to be opened at the right time. Emily picked up the key, feeling its weight in the palm of her hand. It seemed old, possibly from a chest or a jewelry box. She didn't recognize the object, but something about it awakened a disturbing familiarity. That night, for the first time in a long time, Emily dreamed. In her dream, she walked through her grandmother's garden, picking colorful flowers. Nathan was there, observing her from afar with a serene smile, and in the center of the hedge maze, Lily waited, holding a carved wooden box. You finally arrived, said the girl in the dream. We've been waiting for you for so long. Emily woke up with her heart racing and a growing certainty. There was much more to this story than simple coincidences. The puzzle pieces were beginning to align, but the complete picture still remained obscure. Looking out the window, she noticed that the rain had finally stopped. A timid sun tried to break through the clouds, illuminating the mountains with a golden glow. It was as if nature were sending a signal, saying it was time to come out of the shadows and face whatever was waiting for her. The road that led to her grandmother's house wound between ancient pine trees and verdant fields. Emily observed the landscape through the window of the adapted taxi, feeling her heart accelerate with each curve that brought her destination closer. It had been more than 2 years since she had visited that place, since before the accident that had changed her life. "It's just after that curve. To the right," she indicated to the driver, instantly recognizing the wrought iron gate with the design of wildflowers, the registered trademark of the Mitchell property. The taxi stopped in front of the entrance, and Emily took a deep breath before maneuvering her chair out of the vehicle. She paid the fare and remained there, contemplating the stone path that led to the 2-story house. The accessibility adaptations that her father had promised to make had never left. The paper, which meant she would need help to enter. As if reading her thoughts, a familiar figure appeared on the porch. Mr. Anderson, the caretaker who had been looking after the property for more than 3 decades, hastily descended the steps of the entrance. "Miss Emily, what a pleasant surprise!" exclaimed the white-haired gentleman with sun-weathered skin. "If we had known you were coming, we would have prepared everything." "It was a last-minute decision, Mr. Anderson," she explained, smiling at seeing the old friend. "I hope I'm not causing any trouble." "Trouble, never. This house has been waiting for you." He positioned himself behind the chair. "May I?" Emily nodded, allowing him to push the chair along the stone path to the improvised ramp he had built at the side entrance. The house exhaled a familiar smell of old wood and dried flowers that immediately transported Emily to her childhood. "Mrs. Anderson will be so pleased," commented Anderson, referring to his wife who helped care for the house. "She always prepares your room, even without knowing when you'll come." The interior of the house remained practically unchanged. The same dark wood furniture, Persian rugs in the rooms, lace curtains on the wide windows. On the wall of the main room, family portraits silently observed Emily's arrival. Her grandfather, Augustus, whom she never knew. Her grandmother Charlotte with her eternally impeccable bun. Her mother Helen, still young before the illness that took her. And even a photo of Emily as a child, sitting on the garden swing. "We did a general cleaning last week," explained Anderson. "Your father called saying someone might come to see the house." Emily felt a tightness in her chest. "See the house? What do you mean?" The caretaker seemed embarrassed. "He didn't mention it to you. He said something about potential buyers." "The house is not for sale, Mr. Anderson," affirmed Emily firmly. "It never will be as long as I live." The man nodded, visibly relieved. Thank God. It would be a shame to see this place in the hands of strangers after so many years in the family. "Has anyone else been here recently?" asked Emily, remembering Lily's drawing. Anderson thought for a moment. "Not that I know of. Your father came about 2 months ago, but stayed only a few hours. He seemed to be looking for something in the upstairs rooms, but didn't want our help." The information left Emily intrigued. What could her father have been looking for? And why had he never mentioned this visit? "I'd like to be alone for a while, if you don't mind," she requested. "I need to reconnect with this place." Of course, we'll be in the back house if you need anything. Mrs. Anderson will prepare a snack for later." After Anderson left, Emily began to explore the first floor of the house. Each room awakened distinct memories. The music room where her grandmother played piano on Sunday afternoons, the library with floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with old books, the dining room where the family gathered on special occasions. In Artis, the office that had been her grandfather's, Emily found something that caught her attention. On the mahogany desk was an open book marked with a red ribbon. She approached and recognized her grandmother's diary, which she always kept locked in a special drawer. The date at the top of the page was from 20 years ago. Emily began to read. "Today marks 10 years since I had to make the most difficult decision of my life, Sometimes I wonder if I did the right thing, if the sacrifice was worth it. Edward would never understand. Helen might forgive, but I'll never have the chance to know. I can only hope that one day Emily discovers the truth and understands that everything was done out of love, albeit a love divided between two worlds. Emily reread the passage several times, trying to decipher its meaning. What would have been the difficult decision? What truth did her grandmother hope she would discover? The diary continued for a few more pages, but there was nothing as revealing as that paragraph. The mention of the most difficult decision and the sacrifice left Emily uneasy. Her grandmother had always been a discreet woman, almost mysterious in certain aspects, but had never given signs of carrying such deep secrets. A noise on the porch interrupted her thoughts. Someone was knocking at the door. Emily hesitated, thinking it might be Mr. Anderson or Mrs. Anderson, but something told her it was neither. "Who is it?" she asked, approaching the entrance. "Emily, it's me, Nathan." The surprise nearly made her drop the diary. How did Nathan know she was there? And, more importantly, how did he know the location of the house? Opening the door with some hesitation, Emily found Nathan alone, without Lily, looking somewhat nervous. "How did you find me?" she asked directly, without inviting him in. "You won't. Believe it if I tell you," he replied, running a hand through his hair in a gesture that Emily already identified as a sign of anxiety. "Lily insisted you would be here. She had another dream and drew an almost perfect map to this house. I know it sounds crazy, but—" "Where is she?" interrupted Emily. "At the inn, with the babysitter I hired for a few hours. I came alone because—" He hesitated. "We need to talk, Emily. There are things you need to know." Something in Nathan's serious expression made her back up and open the way. "Come in, but I want clear answers this time." In the living room, Nathan seemed out of place, observing the portraits on the wall with disturbing intensity. His eyes lingered especially on the photo of Helen Mitchell, Emily's mother. "Did you know her?" asked Emily, noticing his interest. Nathan turned, surprised. "No, not personally. She looks a lot like you." "Everyone says that," commented Emily, positioning her chair facing him. "Now, why are you here? And how does Lily know so many things? Tell about me and about this house." Nathan sat on the sofa, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "The story is complicated, Emily, and frankly, I don't fully understand it myself. It all started about 6 months ago, when Lily began having vivid dreams about a woman in a wheelchair and a house in the mountains. 6 months? But we only met 2 days ago." "Exactly," agreed Nathan. "At first I thought they were just children's dreams, but they became so frequent and detailed that I started paying more attention. She described you perfectly. Your hair, your eyes, even the stone necklace you always wear. And she talked about this house with details that a child couldn't make up." Emily tried to process the information. "And you decided to look for me based on the dreams of a 6-year-old child?" "It wasn't that simple," explained Nathan. 3 months ago, we received an anonymous letter with your name and the mention of Pine Valley. Along with it was an old photograph." He hesitated, taking from his pocket a black and white photo folded in half. "This photo—" Emily took the image with trembling hands. It was a photograph she had never seen before, showing her grandmother Charlotte very young, probably in the 1960s, beside a man who was not her grandfather, Augustus. They were in front of a mansion that seemed to be this very house but in a newer state. "Who is this man?" she asked, pointing to the figure beside her grandmother. Nathan took a deep breath. "If I'm not mistaken, it's my grandfather, Robert." "Russell!" The silence that followed was almost tangible. Emily looked from the photo to Nathan, trying to find similarities between him and the man in the photograph. There was something in the eyes, in the shape of the face. "Are you suggesting that our families have some connection?" she finally asked. "I'm not sure," admitted Nathan. "My grandfather rarely talked about his past. I only know that he lived in Pine Valley for a period before moving to Boston, where he met my grandmother. This photo is the first concrete evidence of a possible connection with your family." Emily examined the photograph again. Her grandmother smiled in a way she had never seen in other family photos, a smile full of youth and something more. Passion, perhaps. After receiving this photo, continued Nathan, Lily's dreams became even more intense. She started talking about a hidden treasure, about old letters, and a secret that needed to be revealed. Finally, a week ago, she drew a map of Pine Valley and marked Mountain Cafe, saying we needed to go there on a specific date. "My birthday," murmured Emily. "Exactly. I swear we didn't plan to approach you that way. Lily simply recognized you and ran in your direction before I could stop her." Emily tried to order her thoughts. Nathan's story seemed absurd, almost fantastical, but at the same time it explained many of the strange coincidences of the last few days. "And the card with the key?" she suddenly asked. "Was it you who left it in my apartment?" Nathan frowned, confused. What card? What key? His reaction seemed genuine, increasing the mystery even more. If it wasn't Nathan, who would have left those objects? "You said Lily talks about a hidden treasure. What treasure would that be?" "I'm not sure. She mentions a box hidden under the floorboards, in the tower room." Emily felt a chill. The tower room was where my grandmother kept her most personal belongings. No one had permission to enter there except her. They looked at each other, the same idea occurring simultaneously. "We need to check," said Emily, determined. "Are you sure? Maybe we're invading your grandmother's privacy." "She passed away 5 years ago, Nathan, and she left this house to me, along with everything in it. If there's something I should know, I have the right to find out." The problem was how to reach the second floor. The house didn't have an elevator, and the tower room was the most isolated at the end of a narrow corridor. "Mr. Anderson could help," suggested Emily. "He and Mrs. Anderson are in the back house." Nathan offered to fetch them, but before he could leave, they heard the sound of a car parking in front of the house. Through the window, Emily saw her father's black Audi. "It's my father," she said, feeling a sudden apprehension. "He can't know we're looking for something in the tower room." "Why not?" "Because he's been acting strange regarding this house, and according to Mr. Anderson, he was here recently, looking for something in the upstairs rooms." Nathan nodded, understanding the situation. "What do we do?" "Go to the library," instructed Emily. "There's a door that leads to the back garden. Wait there until I can get rid of him." As Nathan quickly headed to the library, Emily put the photograph in her blouse pocket and went to the main entrance. Edward Mitchell's firm steps already sounded on the porch. "Emily," he greeted with evident surprise upon seeing her open the door. "I didn't know you were coming here today." "I decided to make a visit," she replied, keeping her voice neutral. "After all, this house is mine, isn't it?" Edward entered, looking around as if searching for something or someone. You came alone? How did you get here with the chair?" "Adapted taxi, and Mr. Anderson helped me." Her father nodded distractedly, his eyes scanning the room. "Since you're here, we can talk about the sale proposal. The interested parties have increased the offer and—" "I'm not selling, Dad," interrupted Emily firmly. "I already told you that yesterday." Edward sighed, running a hand over his face in a gesture of frustration. "Oh, Emily, you don't understand. This house, there are complications." "What kind of complications?" He hesitated, as if measuring his words. "Old legal issues. Your grandmother wasn't the only original owner of this land." The information caught Emily by surprise. "What do you mean? Didn't Grandpa Augustus build this house for her?" "It's complicated," repeated Edward, averting his gaze. "There are documents, situations from the past that are better not to stir up." Emily remembered the entry in her grandmother's diary and the photograph with Nathan's grandfather. The pieces were starting to fit together. "What documents?" she insisted. "Where are they?" Edward stared at her intensely. "Why this sudden interest? Does it have something to do with that man and the child from the cafe?" Emily's heart accelerated. How did her father know about Nathan and Lily? "You followed us." "I have contacts in town, Emily. People who care about your well-being." "Who is that man? What does he want with you?" "That's none of your business," she replied, feeling anger grow. "I'm an adult and can decide who I relate to." "It is my business when it involves this property." Edward raised his voice. "You have no idea what's at stake here." "Then tell me, what secret is so terrible that it justifies all this manipulation?" Edward seemed about to respond when his cell phone rang. He answered quickly, exchanging a few short words before hanging up. "I need to return to Boston immediately," he said, composing himself. "But this conversation isn't over, Emily. Please don't do anything hasty until we talk again." He walked to the door, stopping before leaving. "And be careful who you trust. Not everyone is what they seem to be." After the car departed, Emily remained motionless for a few minutes, processing the tense conversation. Her father's exaggerated reaction only increased her determination to discover the truth. "Is he gone?" asked Nathan, cautiously returning from the library. "Yes," replied Emily, still shaken. "And now I'm sure there's something important hidden in this house, something my father doesn't want me to find." Nathan approached, gently placing his hand on her shoulder. "Then let's find it before he returns." Mr. and Mrs. Anderson didn't ask questions when Emily explained that she needed to go up to the tower room. The caretaker couple was already accustomed to the mystery surrounding the Mitchell family and, as always, limited themselves to helping. "Can you carry me up there?" asked Emily to Mr. Anderson, who, despite his advanced age, still maintained considerable physical strength. "Of course, Miss Emily," replied the caretaker. "I've carried you in my arms since you were small. I won't falter now." Nathan offered to take the wheelchair while Mr. Anderson carried Emily upstairs. The second floor of the house seemed frozen in time, with the same floral wallpaper, the same paintings of European landscapes, and the characteristic lavender smell that her grandmother loved. "The tower room is at the end of the corridor to the right," indicated Emily, feeling a mixture of anxiety and nostalgia as she revisited that space after so long. Arriving at the room, Mrs. Anderson hastened to open the windows to air the environment. It was an octagonal room with windows on 4 of the 8 walls, offering stunning views of the surrounding mountains. In the center was an antique bed with a canopy. In one corner, a Victorian dressing table filled with perfume bottles and jewelry boxes. In the other, a noble wood desk covered with papers organized in meticulous piles. "Do you need anything else, miss?" asked Mrs. Anderson, after Emily was accommodated in a comfortable armchair. "Actually, yes," replied Emily. "Could you leave us alone for a while? There are personal matters I need to resolve." The couple exchanged quick glances before nodding. "We'll be downstairs if you need us," said Mr. Anderson, closing the door as he left. As soon as they were alone, Nathan and Emily began to examine the room thoroughly. According to Lily, there should be a box hidden under the floorboards, but the room was large and the floor was covered by a Persian rug that occupied almost the entire extension. "Where do we start?" asked Nathan, clearly uncomfortable with the idea of rummaging through the private sanctuary of Emily's grandmother. "Let's think like my grandmother," suggested Emily. She was methodical and traditional, but also had a romantic side that few knew. Her eyes scanned the room, finally stopping at the desk. There. She spent hours writing at that table. If there was a secret, it would be near where she felt most at ease. Nathan carefully moved the rug in the indicated area, revealing the noble wood flooring, dark and well-preserved. At first glance, all the boards seemed identical and firmly fixed. "Look for some mark or different sign," directed Emily, frustrated that she couldn't kneel to help in the search. Nathan meticulously examined each board until he noticed something. "This one has a small carving, almost imperceptible." He pointed to a mark in the shape of a half-moon on the side of one of the boards. Pressing lightly, he noticed that the wood yielded a bit, different from the others around it. "I think we found it," he said, looking at Emily with expectation. "Try to lift the board," she suggested, leaning in the armchair to see better. With some effort, Nathan managed to lift the marked board, revealing a small hidden compartment. Inside was a carved wooden box with floral motifs, exactly as Lily had described in her dreams. "It's amazing," murmured Nathan, carefully removing the box and handing it to Emily. "How could Lily know about this?" Emily held the box with trembling hands. It was heavier than it looked, with delicate details and a small brass lock in front. "We need a key." At that moment, she remembered the mysterious key she had found in her apartment. "Nathan, in my coat, in the inner pocket, there's a key that mysteriously appeared yesterday." He picked up the coat that was folded on the bed and found the small antique key. "This one?" "Yes." "Try to see if it works." Nathan handed the key to Emily, who hesitated for an instant before inserting it into the lock. It fit perfectly. With a soft click, the lid of the box opened, revealing its contents. Several letters yellowed by time, old photographs, a leather-bound diary, and a small blue velvet box. "Where do we begin?" asked Nathan, sitting on the edge of the bed. Emily picked up the diary. "With this, if we want to understand this story, we need to start at the beginning." The diary had the date 1962 on the first page and was written in her grandmother's elegant handwriting. Emily began to read aloud. "January 10th, 1962. Today, I arrived in Pine Valley for treatment. Father insists that the mountain air will help my lungs, and perhaps he's right. The boarding house where I'm staying is simple but cozy. The mountains are magnificent, and despite the loneliness, I feel that this place has something to offer me beyond physical healing." Emily turned a few pages, looking for more significant entries. February 15th, 1962. I met a young man today during my morning walk. Robert Russell, architect, came to Pine Valley to design a summer residence for a Boston family. We talked about architecture, art, and music. It was the first time in months that I didn't feel like a patient, but like a woman. Nathan's eyes widened upon hearing his grandfather's name. So it's true, they really met. Emily continued reading, selecting passages that seemed important. April 10th, 1962. Robert showed me the plans for the house he's designing. It's magnificent, with a room in the shape of a tower that offers views in all directions. When I commented on how much I would love such a room, he smiled and said that one day he would design an entire house just for me. I know it's just a dream, but for the first time in years, I allowed myself to dream. June 20th, 1962. We're in love. Robert talks about marriage, about building a life together, but Father would never approve. The Russells are a simple family, without name or fortune, and there's Augustus Mitchell, the son of Father's partner, whom he has planned for me to marry since I was born. How can I choose between love and family duty? Emily paused, looking at Nathan. My grandmother and your grandfather, they were in love. Nathan seemed equally surprised. My grandfather never mentioned this. He married my grandmother Isabel in 1964, from what I know. Emily returned to the diary, advancing a few months. December 15th, 1962. Robert bought a piece of land on the outskirts of Pine Valley. He said it's our place where he will build the house of our dreams. He showed me the plans today. It's exactly as I imagined, with the tower room and windows in all directions. For the first time I told him about the baby. In April we will be 3. Baby? Exclaimed Emily, looking at Nathan with astonishment. My grandmother was pregnant? She continued reading, each page revealing more details of the secret story. March 10, 1963. The house is almost ready, as are our plans to escape. Robert finished the baby's room yesterday. Painted the walls yellow, as we don't know if it will be a boy or a girl. We decided we will leave after the child is born. We will go south, maybe to Argentina, where no one knows us. I know I'm me. They're disappointing my family, but I cannot live the life they planned for me. April 30th, 1963. Helen was born today in our new house. So small and perfect. Robert cried when he held her for the first time. Our escape plans are set for 2 weeks from now, when I will be strong enough to travel. Robert has already arranged the documents and tickets. Emily stopped, stunned. Helen, my mother. That would mean that your biological grandfather would be Robert Russell, my grandfather, completed Nathan, equally impacted by the revelation. But that doesn't make sense, protested Emily. My mother grew up as the daughter of Charlotte and Augustus Mitchell. How would that be possible if my grandmother planned to flee with Robert? Both turned back to the diary, eager for answers. The next entries had less careful handwriting, as if they had been written in haste or under strong emotion. May 15th, 1963. Tragedy. Father discovered everything. He sent men who invaded our house last night. Robert tried to resist, to protect. Helen and me, but there were too many. They took me and the baby back to Boston. I don't know what happened to Robert after we were separated. I am desperate. May 20th, 1963. Augustus came to see me today. He offered a deal. He will marry me and register Helen as his daughter, giving her the name and protection of the Mitchells. In exchange, I must renounce Robert forever and keep this secret until the end of my life. For Helen, I accepted. May God forgive me. Emily felt tears springing to her eyes. The story of her family, which had always seemed so solid and traditional, now revealed itself to be built on lies and forced separations. "This explains many things," she murmured. "My mother always had a distant relationship with my grandfather. I mean with Augustus. And my grandmother, despite appearing happy in photographs, had moments of deep melancholy that no one understood." Nathan picked up one of the letters that were in the box. The envelope was addressed to Charlotte Mitchell, dated 1964, sent from Boston. Carefully, he opened it and began to read. My beloved Charlotte, I don't know if this letter will reach your hands, but I must try. After that terrible night, I was kept in prison for weeks, falsely accused of crimes I didn't commit. When I finally managed to free myself, you had already married Augustus. I looked for you in Boston, but your family prevented me from seeing you, threatening to harm you and our daughter. I know you did what you thought was best to protect Helen. I don't blame you for that. But I can't bear the idea of never seeing our daughter grow up. Please, if there is any way to allow me at least to know her, even from afar, without her knowing who I am. Always yours. Robert. There were more letters, all unsent or returned, showing Robert's persistent attempts to maintain some contact with Charlotte and their daughter over the years. The last was dated 1970, when he announced he was moving permanently to New Hampshire with his new family. My father was born in 1968, commented Nathan. My grandfather was already married to my grandmother Isabel when he wrote this last letter. Emily opened the small blue velvet box that was among the documents. Inside was an engagement ring with a single emerald surrounded by small diamonds. I never saw my grandmother wear this ring, she commented, admiring. The delicate jewel. Nathan picked up one of the photographs. It showed Robert and Charlotte, young and smiling, in front of the house that now belonged to Emily. In another photo, Charlotte held a newborn baby, with Robert by her side, paternal pride evident on his face. It's incredible how they managed to keep this a secret for so many decades, commented Nathan. But I still don't understand how Lily could know about all this, or how the key appeared in your apartment. Emily thought for a moment, trying to connect all the pieces of the puzzle. My father must have discovered it recently. That would explain his insistence on selling the house, his strange behavior, the visit he made looking for something in the upstairs rooms. But what about Lily and her dreams? Insisted Nathan. How to explain that? Emily looked again at the photographs, especially at the image of her mother as a baby in Charlotte's arms. I don't know if there's a rational explanation. Perhaps some connections transcend what we can understand. A noise coming from downstairs interrupted the conversation. They heard Mr. Anderson's voice conversing with someone, followed by footsteps, climbing the stairs. It must be my father returning, whispered Emily, alarmed. We need to put everything away. Quickly, Nathan helped to replace the contents in the box, but before they could close it, the door to the room opened. To the surprise of both, it wasn't Edward Mitchell who entered, but Lily, followed by a middle-aged woman whom Emily didn't know. Lily! What are you doing here? Asked Nathan, confused. I left you with Miss Martha at the inn. She insisted so much that she needed to come that I finally gave in, explained the woman, clearly embarrassed. She said you were in danger and that she needed to deliver something important. Lily ran to Emily, ignoring her father's reprimand. You found the box. I knew you would find it. Emily looked at the girl with fascination and a shiver of unease. How did you know about the box, Lily, and how did you know we would be here? Instead of answering, Lily opened her small backpack and took out an old and yellowed envelope. "Grandma gave me this before going to heaven. She said I would know when and to whom to deliver it." Nathan took the envelope from his daughter's hands. "Lily, what are you talking about? Grandma Isabel passed away when you were only 3 years old." "Not that grandma," explained the girl with childish impatience. "The other grandma, the one who comes in my dreams." Emily and Nathan exchanged perplexed looks. Nathan carefully opened the envelope and removed a letter written in a shaky handwriting, different from the others they had read, but still recognizable as Charlotte Mitchell's. "This letter is dated 2 weeks before my grandmother's death," noted Emily, observing the heading. Nathan began to read aloud. "My dear great-granddaughter, if you are reading this letter, it means you have found your—" "Wait to Emily, as I knew you would. There are bonds that connect our family that go beyond blood and time, bonds that not even separation could break. What your parents call dreams is actually the memory of the heart, passed through generations. Your special connection is proof that true love is never completely lost, it only transforms and finds new paths. Emily needs to know her true story, not just to understand the past, but to embrace her future. Help her find the strength she already possesses, but that the accident made dormant. With all my love, Charlotte, whom you know in your dreams." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of wind at the windows of the tower room. Lily looked at everyone with the tranquility of someone who finally fulfilled an important mission. "How is this possible?" murmured Nathan, looking from the letter to his daughter. "Grandma Charlotte passed away years before Lily was born. How could she have written a letter to her?" Emily, however, seemed less surprised. "My grandmother always said that there are mysteries in this life that reason cannot explain. It seems she knew more than we imagined." Emily's eyes filled with tears as she looked at Lily. This child, who had appeared so suddenly in her life, was actually her. What would she be? Second cousin? The exact relationship seemed less important now than the inexplicable connection they felt. "There's one more thing," said Lily, taking a small object from her pocket. "This is also for you." It was an antique key, identical to the one Emily had mysteriously found in her apartment. "But how you—" began Emily, confused. "Now we have two," exclaimed Lily with childish enthusiasm. "One for the past and one for the future. Grandma Charlotte said you would know what that means when the time came." Looking at the second key in her hand, Emily felt a strange sensation that, despite all the revelations of that day, there was still much more to discover. And somehow those two identical keys were an essential part of the mystery that was only beginning to unravel. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like. Tell us which city you're watching us from. We continue. The sun was beginning to set when Mr. Anderson knocked gently on the tower room door, announcing that he had prepared a snack for everyone in the dining room. Emily carefully put the letters and diary back in the box, but kept the two identical keys with her, feeling they were crucial for what would come next. "Let's go downstairs," she said, addressing Nathan, Lily, and Ms. Martha, the babysitter, who remained visibly uncomfortable with the whole situation. "We need to talk more calmly about all this." Nathan helped Emily settle into her wheelchair, and together they went down to the dining room, where Mrs. Anderson had prepared a feast of homemade treats, freshly baked muffins, cornbread, cookies, and a steaming pot of hot chocolate. "I thought everyone might need something comforting," explained the lady, observing the group with poorly disguised curiosity. "You all look like you've seen a ghost." "In a way, we have," murmured Emily, thanking her with a smile. After Mr. and Mrs. Anderson retired to the guest house, Emily finally had the chance to observe Lily more carefully. The child ate cookies and drank hot chocolate like any 6-year-old, seemingly oblivious to the magnitude of the revelations she had brought. Was it possible that she truly didn't understand the significance of it all, or did she simply deal with the extraordinary with the naturalness characteristic of childhood? "Lily," Emily began gently, "could you tell me more about your dreams with my grandmother Charlotte?" The girl licked the chocolate from her lips before answering. "She's been visiting me since I was very little. At first, I thought it was just a normal dream, but then I realized it was different." Different how? Asked Nathan, who seemed torn between paternal skepticism and the undeniable evidence that his daughter knew things she couldn't know through conventional means. Because the things she showed me in the dreams later appeared for real, explained Lily with simplicity. Like the cafe where we met Aunt Emily or this house, and also because I could remember everything when I woke up, as if it wasn't a dream. Emily exchanged glances with Nathan, both processing the implications of those words. And what did my grandmother show you in these dreams? Lily thought for a moment, her forehead wrinkled in concentration. Many things. Stories of when she was young, the house being built, the room painted yellow for the baby. She paused, taking another sip of chocolate. And she also showed you before and after the accident. The mention of the accident made Emily stiffen. What did she show about the accident? That it wasn't really an accident, answered Lily, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. Grandma Charlotte said someone tampered with the car with the wheels to hurt you. Nathan choked on the coffee he was drinking. Lily, we shouldn't make accusations like that without proof. Emily, however, felt a chill down her spine. Sabotage? But who would do that? And why? The white-haired man, replied Lily promptly. Aunt Emily's father. He didn't want you to discover the secrets of the house. A heavy silence fell over the room. The idea that Edward Mitchell might have deliberately caused the accident that left his own daughter in a wheelchair was so monstrous that Emily couldn't fully process it. Lily, that's a very serious accusation, said Nathan firmly. We can't state something like that based only on dreams. But it's not just that, insisted the girl, now seeming older than her 6 years. Grandma Charlotte showed where the evidence is. What evidence? Asked Emily, unable to contain her curiosity despite the horror she felt. In the white-haired man's office in Boston. There's a safe behind the painting of the serious man, and inside are papers that prove everything. Emily knew her father's office in the mansion in Beacon Hill well, and she knew exactly which painting Lily was describing, the oil portrait of her great-grandfather, Theodore Mitchell, founder of the family fortune. But she had never known of the existence of a safe behind it. This is too much, said Miss Martha, breaking her long silence. Nathan, I think we should take Lily back to the inn. These conversations aren't appropriate for a child. I agree, said Nathan, seeming relieved by the suggestion. Emily, we need to digest all this calmly. These are too many revelations for a single day. Emily nodded, although part of her wanted to continue exploring Lily's revelations. You're right. It's getting late, and my father could return at any moment. It's better that he doesn't find you here. When Nathan stood to leave, Emily called him aside. Can we meet tomorrow? There's something I need to verify, and I'd like your company. Of course, he replied. Where and when? At, the cafe at 10 in the morning, and if possible, leave Lily with Miss Martha. What I have in mind might be complicated. After everyone left, Emily asked Mr. Anderson to call an adapted taxi. She would return to her apartment in town, where she could think more clearly about the extraordinary events of that day. On the way back, with the box of family secrets carefully stored in her bag, Emily couldn't stop thinking about Lily's accusations against her father. Was it possible that Edward had deliberately caused the accident? The man was known for his coldness in business and his obsession with control, but to try to eliminate his own daughter seemed too great a leap even for him. On the other hand, the evidence was accumulating. The insistence on selling the house, the suspicious behavior, the search for something in the upstairs rooms, and now the revelations about her mother's true father, a secret that would shake the foundations of the respectable Mitchell family if it came to light. Upon arriving at the apartment, Emily found another surprise. On her work table was an envelope identical to the one she had found the day before. Inside, a new card with the same handwriting. Not all treasures are buried. Some are hidden in plain sight. Next to the card was a small electronic key, the type used in modern high-security safes. No signature, no additional explanations. Just the key and the enigmatic message. Emily took her cell phone and called Rebecca, her therapist. She needed to share the events of that day with someone trustworthy, someone who could offer a rational perspective, free from the emotions that clouded her own judgment. "Rebecca, sorry to call so late, but something extraordinary happened. Can we meet tomorrow before the usual time?" After scheduling the meeting for 8 in the morning, Emily spent the night reviewing the letters and diary found in the secret box. The love story between her grandmother Charlotte and Robert Russell was as moving as it was tragic. Two people separated by social conventions and the ruthless intervention of powerful families. Her mother Helen had never known the truth about her origin. She had grown up as a legitimate Mitchell, married a businessman carefully chosen by Edward, and lived a brief and apparently happy life until the illness that took her when Emily was only 12 years old. What would have happened if Charlotte and Robert had managed to escape as they planned? How would Helen's life have been growing up with her real parents, away from the pressures and expectations of the Mitchell family? And more importantly, what was the connection between this story from the past and the accident that had transformed Emily's life 2 years ago? The next morning, Emily arrived punctually at Rebecca's office, eager to share her discoveries. The therapist received her with her usual serene expression, but her eyes revealed curiosity about the reason for the urgent consultation. "You seem different today," commented Rebecca, watching attentively as Emily positioned her chair near the window. "There's an energy in you that I haven't seen in a long time." "Things have happened that I couldn't have imagined even in my most fantastic dreams," replied Emily, before recounting in detail the events of the last few days, the encounter with Nathan and Lily, the discoveries in her grandmother's house, the revelations about the family past, and finally, the disturbing suggestion that her father might be involved in her accident. Rebecca listened to everything without interrupting, her face maintaining professional neutrality, although her eyes occasionally widened at the most surprising revelations. "It's an extraordinary story," she finally commented when Emily finished her account. "And I understand why you're so shaken, but I need to ask, do you really believe your father would be capable of something so extreme?" Emily hesitated. "Until a few days ago I would have said no, but now I don't know anymore. What I do know is that I intend to investigate. Today I will verify if there really is a safe behind the painting in his office in Boston." "That seems risky to me," warned Rebecca. "If Lily's accusations are true, and your father really tried to prevent you from discovering these secrets, confronting him could be dangerous." "I don't intend to confront him, at least not yet," explained Emily. "I'm going with Nathan to the mansion in Beacon Hill. My father will be in a board meeting all day, and I have the keys to the house. It will just be a quick check." Rebecca seemed concerned. "And if you don't find anything? Or worse, if you find something that confirms the suspicions?" "Then I'll deal with it when it happens," replied Emily with a determination that surprised them both. "I've spent 2 years hiding from the world, Rebecca. 2 years blaming fate, bad luck, or my own recklessness for the accident. If there's a possibility that it was deliberate, I need to know. I owe it to myself." After the session, Emily headed to Mountain Cafe, where Nathan was already waiting for her. He seemed to have slept little, with visible dark circles and a worried expression that softened slightly upon seeing her. "How's Lily?" asked Emily, after ordering her usual hot chocolate. "Sleeping when I left. Miss Martha said she had a quiet night, without the so-called special dreams." Nathan paused, absently stirring his coffee with the spoon. "Emily, I've been thinking a lot about all this. It's difficult to believe in some parts of the story." "Which parts exactly?" she asked, although she already knew the answer. "The suggestion that your father sabotaged your car to cause the accident," he replied, lowering his voice. "It's a very serious accusation, based only on the account of a 6-year-old child about supposed dreams with your deceased grandmother." Emily nodded, understanding his hesitation. "I have my doubts too, Nathan. That's why I want to verify if there really is a safe in my father's office, as Lily described. If there's nothing there, perhaps we can dismiss that part of the story as childish imagination." "And if there is a safe exactly where she said?" questioned Nathan, his intense gaze fixed on Emily. "Then we'll have to face the possibility that other parts of the story are also true," she replied simply. Nathan took a deep breath. What exactly are you proposing? A quick trip to Boston. We can go and return on the same day. My father will be out all day in meetings at the company. The mansion in Beacon Hill will be empty, except for the staff, who know me well and won't question my presence. And what would I tell Lily? Asked Nathan, still hesitant. That we're going to resolve some matters and will return in the evening? Ms. Martha seems trustworthy, and Mr. and Mrs. Anderson would certainly help if necessary. After a few minutes of deliberation, Nathan finally agreed. All right, but we'll just check the safe. If it exists and if we can open it, we'll look at the documents. No confrontations or accusations, at least for now. I completely agree, assured Emily. 3 hours later, they were at the Mitchell Mansion in the elegant Beacon Hill neighborhood in Boston. The house, an imposing early 20th century palace, was a symbol of the family's economic power, with its spacious halls, valuable works of art, and meticulously maintained gardens. Manuel, the butler who had served the family for more than 20 years, received Emily with the usual warm formality. Miss Emily, what a pleasant surprise. Your father didn't mention that you would be coming today. It was a last-minute decision, Manuel, she explained, introducing Nathan as an architect friend interested in the neoclassical style of the mansion, a half-truth that the butler accepted without questioning. I'd like to show him Father's office, continued Emily. That portrait of great-grandfather Theodore is an excellent example of the portraitist style of the early century. Certainly, miss. Dr. Mitchell is in meetings, all day at the company, but left instructions that you should always be received as the lady of the house. After Manuel withdrew, Emily led Nathan through the corridors of the mansion until they reached Edward Mitchell's private office. It was an imposing room, with bookshelves covering 2 entire walls, a massive mahogany desk in the center, and, as Lily had described, an oil portrait of Theodore Mitchell occupying a prominent place on the wall behind the chair. It's exactly as she described, murmured Nathan, observing the portrait of the Mitchell patriarch, a stern man with a severe expression, wearing a dark suit from the Belle Époque. Emily maneuvered her chair to face the painting. Let's see if the rest of the description is also correct. With Nathan's help, they carefully removed the heavy painting from the wall, revealing exactly what Lily had predicted, a state-of-the-art electronic safe embedded in the wall. My God! Exclaimed Nathan, clearly impressed. She was right. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine as she took from her bag the small electronic key that she had mysteriously found in her apartment the night before. Let's see if this works. The key fit perfectly into the side receptacle of the safe. After a slight beep, the digital panel lit up, requesting a numeric password. And now? Asked Nathan. Lily didn't mention any password. Emily thought for a moment. Let's try something obvious first. She typed her father's date of birth. 05121955. The panel flashed red, incorrect password. Maybe the company's founding date, suggested Nathan. Emily tried. 07031925. Again, the panel rejected the password. After several more frustrated attempts, Emily suddenly remembered something. The 2 identical keys, one for the past and one for the future, that's what Lily said. She took from her bag the 2 antique keys found the day before. These must mean something. Turning one of the keys, she noticed something she hadn't seen before, small numbers engraved on the base. 170663, she read aloud. June 17th, 1963, suggested Nathan. The date seems familiar. Emily felt her heart accelerate. It's the date that was on Lily's drawing. And also, she quickly consulted her notes on her grandmother's diary. It's the date when my grandparents officially married, shortly after Charlotte was forced to leave Robert. With trembling fingers, Emily typed the sequence 17063 on the safe's panel. There was a soft beep, followed by a metallic click, and the safe door opened. The interior revealed an organized pile of documents, some looking very old, others more recent. On top, there was a black folder with the label EMA Incident 6/17/21, the date of her accident. Emily and Nathan exchanged tense looks before she finally gathered the courage to open the folder. Inside, they found detailed reports of a private investigation, photographs of the car destroyed after the accident, and, more disturbing, a technical report from a vehicular forensics expert confirming signs of sabotage in the brake system. Stapled. To the report was a receipt of payment to a certain Jerry Simmons with the cryptic description, Special Technical Services, EMA vehicle. The amount was $50,000. "This can't be real," murmured Emily, suddenly feeling nauseated. Nathan, equally pale, was leafing through other documents in the folder. "There's more here. It seems your father hired investigators to monitor your movements in the weeks prior to the accident." "But why?" questioned Emily, her voice almost failing. "Why would my own father do this to me?" The answer came in the form of another document, found deeper in the safe. It was a will, dated 1 month before Charlotte Mitchell's death, establishing that the house in Pine Valley and all documents contained therein should pass directly to Emily on her 30th birthday, regardless of Edward's wishes. "My grandmother wanted to ensure that I would discover the truth when I turned 30, concluded Emily, the pieces finally fitting together, and my father was determined to prevent that. But to try to kill his own daughter, Nathan couldn't complete the sentence, horrified by the possibility. "Maybe the goal wasn't to kill me," reflected Emily, though without much conviction. "Maybe just to temporarily incapacitate me, gain time to find and destroy the evidence." The sound of a door closing in the corridor interrupted the conversation. Quickly, Nathan helped Emily replace the documents in the safe, keeping only the folder about the accident, which they hid in her bag. They closed the safe and repositioned the painting on the wall seconds before the office door opened. To the horror of both, Edward Mitchell was standing at the entrance, his face a mask of contained fury upon seeing his daughter and the stranger in his private sanctuary. "Emily," he said, his voice dangerously controlled. "What a surprise to find you here. And I see you've brought it company." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. For the first time in her life, she was afraid of her own father. The office of Edward Mitchell seemed to have suddenly diminished in size, the air becoming dense and suffocating as the silence extended for seconds that seemed eternal. Emily felt the weight of the folder with the evidence in her bag, as if the documents contained there emitted a perceptible heat. "Dad," she finally managed to say, striving to keep her voice firm. "This is Nathan Russell. We were just observing." "So the architecture of the house, I imagine," completed Edward with cutting irony, closing the door behind him. His cold eyes examined Nathan with a calculating interest. "Russell, an interesting surname." Nathan stepped forward, extending his hand. "Mr. Mitchell, it's a pleasure to meet you. Emily has told me a lot about you." Edward ignored the extended hand, walking to his desk with deliberately slow steps. "I'm sure she has, especially in the last few days, I imagine." He turned to Emily, his gaze now charged with a disturbing intensity. "You were at your grandmother's house yesterday, weren't you?" "Yes," replied Emily, deciding that denial would be useless. "It's my house now, after all." "And I suppose you found interesting things there," continued Edward, sitting in his leather chair while indicating the seats in front for his guests. "Perhaps." In the tower room, Emily felt a chill. How did he know? Was there hidden cameras in the house, or had someone observed them? Her eyes met Nathan's, silently conveying a message of caution. "Actually, we did," she replied, deciding to change strategy. Instead of hiding, she would face the situation directly. "We found Grandma Charlotte's diary, Robert Russell's letters, and the truth about Mom's birth." Edward showed no surprise, only a resigned weariness, as if finally accepting the inevitable. "I imagined this would happen eventually. Your grandmother was too stubborn to take secrets to the grave. Why did you never tell me?" asked Emily, the hurt evident in her voice. "Why keep this secret for so many decades?" "To protect the family's reputation, the Mitchell legacy," replied Edward, as if explaining something obvious. "Do you think it would have been easy for your mother to discover she grew up in a lie? That the man she called father was just a business arrangement?" "So it was out of kindness?" questioned Nathan, unable to contain himself. "Out of protection?" Edward, gave him an icy look. "You are not part of this family, Mr. Russell, or perhaps you are in a way you don't even imagine." "He knows about Robert and Charlotte," explained Emily, carefully watching her father's reaction. "In fact, Nathan is Robert Russell's grandson." For an instant, Edward seemed genuinely surprised. His eyes examined Nathan's face with new interest. "Now I see the resemblance. The same eyes, the same face shape. Life has a perverse sense of humor, doesn't it? Bringing Robert's grandson back into my daughter's life, as if closing a circle." "It wasn't a coincidence," said Emily, deciding to reveal another part of the story. "Nathan's daughter, Lily, has a special connection with Grandma Charlotte. It was she who guided us to the house, to the tower room." "The girl from the cafe," murmured Edward, his expression now difficult to interpret. "I always thought there was something strange about her. The eyes are too wise for a child." An uncomfortable silence fell over the office. Emily knew she needed to address the most difficult subject, but the words seemed stuck in her throat. How to ask her own father if he had tried to eliminate her? "There's one more thing we discovered," she finally said, gathering all her courage. "About my accident." Edward's countenance instantly hardened. "Your accident was a tragedy, Emily. An unfortunate combination of bad weather, dangerous road, and perhaps a moment of distraction." "The brakes were sabotaged," she declared, observing every minimal reaction on her father's face. "We have the forensic report that you yourself commissioned, and the receipt of payment to Jerry Simmons for special technical services." Edward remained motionless for several seconds, only his eyes betraying an inner tumult. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded tired. "So you've been in my safe. Impressive. How far the audacity of youth goes." "Is it true?" insisted Emily, her hands gripping the armrests of her wheelchair so tightly that her knuckles whitened. "Did you order the sabotage of my car?" To the surprise of both, Edward let out a dry laugh devoid of humor. "Oh, Emily, always so direct, so black and white. The world is rarely so simple." He stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the garden. "I hired Jerry to install a tracking device on your car, not to sabotage it. I wanted to know if you were visiting your grandmother's house, if you were looking for the documents that Charlotte left." Emily and Nathan exchanged confused looks. "But the forensic report," she began. "The report came after the accident," explained Edward, turning to face them. "When you had the accident, my first thought was that Jerry had done something wrong, perhaps inadvertently damaged the brake system while installing the tracker. I commissioned the forensic investigation to confirm my suspicions." "And it confirmed," concluded Nathan. "Yes, but not in the way I expected," continued Edward. "The brakes were professionally sabotaged, but not by Jerry. He only installed the tracker and did a clean job. The sabotage was done days later by someone with superior technical knowledge." Emily tried to process the information. If it wasn't her father, then who would have motives to want to harm her? "Why did you hide the report? Why not take it to the police?" Edward returned to his chair, sighing deeply. "Because the main suspicion would fall on me, obviously. What stronger motive would there be than a millionaire inheritance? Besides, there was your grandmother's will, the imminent revelation of family secrets." He paused. "And there was another complication." "What complication?" asked Emily, increasingly confused. "Augustus Mitchell is still alive," revealed Edward, observing the shock on his daughter's face. "My father, or the man who accepted that role, didn't die 15 years ago as everyone thinks. He lives isolated in a clinic in Switzerland, suffering from advanced dementia. My grandfather is alive." Emily could hardly believe it. "Why this farce?" "Because he discovered the truth about his origin shortly before the supposed death," explained Edward. "The shock of knowing he had raised another man's daughter, added to the discovery that Charlotte had never really loved him, was devastating. He tried—" Edward hesitated, choosing his words. "He tried to do something unthinkable. We had to intervene and create the story of his death to protect the family's reputation while he received treatment." "You think it was him?" asked Nathan. "That somehow he managed to organize the sabotage of Emily's car from Switzerland?" Edward shook his head. "No. He barely recognizes his own face in the mirror. But his condition opened another possibility. People who could benefit financially if Emily also were no longer present. The distant relatives who would inherit everything, concluded Emily, remembering the provisions of the family will that her father had made her memorize since she was young. The cousins from New York? Claude and Regina Mitchell, confirmed Edward. They have known about Augustus's condition for years and had been pressuring for a larger participation in the family businesses. When they learned about Charlotte's will, which guaranteed you not only the house but also a controlling stake in the companies when you turned 30, they decided to eliminate the competition, completed Nathan, horrified. I don't have concrete evidence, admitted Edward, only circumstantial. That's why I kept the investigation private, trying to gather sufficient evidence before formally accusing them. Emily tried to absorb the avalanche of revelations. Her grandfather alive, cousins conspiring against her, her father trying to protect her in his own distorted way. It was almost too much to process. Why didn't you tell me? She asked, feeling tears forming in the corners of her eyes. Why all these lies, these secrets? Edward looked at her with an expression that Emily rarely saw before, vulnerability. Because I didn't know how. I never knew how to be the father you deserved, Emily. I grew up observing my parents' unhappy marriage, based on social conventions and lies. When your mother left us, I immersed myself in the only world that made sense to me. Business, control, strategies. He stood again, hesitantly approaching his daughter. I tried to protect you in the only way I knew, keeping you away from family secrets, from complications, from people who could harm you. Including Nathan? Questioned Emily. Is that why you've been watching me? Why you tried to keep him away? Especially him, confirmed Edward. When I discovered that Robert Russell's grandson had entered your life, precisely when the deadline established in Charlotte's will was approaching, it seemed too convenient to be a coincidence. Nathan stood up, directly confronting Edward. There was no plan at all, Mr. Mitchell. I met your daughter because of Lily's dreams, as unbelievable as that may seem. I didn't know about the connection between our families until yesterday. Edward studied Nathan's face for a long moment, as if looking for signs of lying. Finally, he nodded slightly. Perhaps I allowed myself to see conspiracies where there was only chance. Or perhaps, he looked at Emily, perhaps your grandmother found ways to interfere beyond what we can understand. A reflective silence fell over the office, each absorbed in their own thoughts. Emily felt emotionally exhausted, but also strangely relieved. There were still many unanswered questions, but for the first time in years, she felt she was closer to the truth. What do we do now? She finally asked, looking at her father. First, we need to ensure your safety, replied Edward, with the pragmatic determination that characterized him. If my suspicions about Claude and Regina are correct, they might try again when they learn you're investigating the past. And what about the documents in Grandma's house? Asked Emily. The box? The letters? The diary? They must be preserved, decided Edward, to the surprise of both. They're part of our history, however inconvenient it may be. Charlotte deserves to have her truth known after so many years of forced silence. Nathan, who had remained thoughtful, finally spoke. There's something I don't understand. If the goal was to prevent Emily from discovering the truth at 30, why try to eliminate her at 26? Edward frowned, considering the question. It's a good observation. Perhaps they discovered that Charlotte left clues that Emily could find before the official deadline. Or perhaps, he hesitated, perhaps the target wasn't Emily, but someone else. Who would be in the car that day? What do you mean? Asked Emily, confused. You weren't supposed to be driving alone that night, explained Edward. According to your schedule, you had a meeting with Laura Preston, the historian who was helping you with research on colonial architecture. Emily's eyes widened, suddenly remembering. That's true. Laura cancelled at the last minute. Something about documents found in Williamsburg that needed urgent verification. A historian specializing in old documents, murmured Nathan. Someone who could help decipher diaries and letters from the past. And who had access to Grandma's house. Since we were using the library's collection for research, completed Emily, the implications becoming clear. You think the target was her, That someone discovered we were close to finding something important. Edward nodded gravely. It's a possibility I never considered until now. Perhaps we should locate this historian, see what she knows. I've already tried, said Emily. After the accident, when I finally left the hospital, I tried to resume contact, but she had accepted a job in England and didn't leave an address or phone number. Convenient, commented Edward, his analytical mind already working on the new information. I'll put investigators on locating her immediately. Emily felt that finally the pieces of the puzzle were beginning to make sense, although the complete picture was still far from forming. One thing, however, was clear. Her family's story was much more complex and interconnected than she had ever imagined. We need to return to Pine Valley, she said, determined. Lily might be in danger if someone discovers her role in all this. Edward agreed, already picking up the phone. I'll arrange security immediately, and I suggest you don't return by car. My helicopter can take you in less than an hour. While Edward made the necessary calls, Emily and Nathan exchanged significant looks. The trust between them, forged in the last few days through shared revelations and dangers, had solidified into something deeper. Can we trust him? Whispered Nathan, leaning so that only Emily could hear. She observed her father for a moment, seeing him not as the intimidating and distant figure she had known all her life, but as a complex man, shaped by secrets and pains he had carried for decades. I think so, she finally replied. He may not have been the best father, but I believe he always tried to protect me in his own distorted way. 2 hours later, the helicopter landed at the private heliport on the outskirts of Pine Valley. A car was already waiting for them, and in less than 20 minutes, they arrived at the inn where Lily and Miss Martha were staying. To everyone's relief, they found the girl perfectly fine, drawing tranquilly in the inn's living room while waiting for her father's return. Upon seeing them, her face lit up with a smile. "You found the treasure," she exclaimed, running to hug Emily. "Grandma Charlotte showed me in the dream." Emily exchanged surprised looks with Nathan. "You dreamed about us today, Lily?" The girl nodded enthusiastically. "I saw you in the white-haired man's office finding important papers inside the wall, and I saw that now he's going to help, not hinder." Edward, who was observing the scene from the door, seemed simultaneously fascinated and disturbed by the precision of the child's descriptions. "Impressive," he murmured, approaching cautiously. "You must be Lily." The girl studied him with surprising intensity for someone so young. "You're Aunt Emily's father. In my dream you were sad, but now you'll get better." Edward didn't know how to respond, limiting himself to a hesitant nod. For a man accustomed to controlling all variables, Lily's apparent ability to see beyond the ordinary was deeply disconcerting. While Nathan and Miss Martha organized their departure from the inn, Edward had insisted that everyone would be safer at Charlotte's house, now with reinforced security. Emily took Lily to the inn's garden, wanting to talk in private. "Lily," she began, positioning her chair to be at the girl's eye level, "you said Grandma Charlotte showed you many things in the dreams. Did she show you if I'll ever walk again?" The question came out almost as a whisper, carrying a hope that Emily barely allowed herself to feel. Since the accident, the doctors had been clear about the permanent nature of her condition, although they always left that protocol margin for future medical advances. Lily smiled, that pure and confident smile of children who haven't yet learned to doubt. "Grandma Charlotte showed you dancing in the garden of the house near the swing. It wasn't a dream, it was a memory of the future," she said. Emily felt her heart accelerate. "Memory of the future." "Yes," confirmed the girl with simplicity. "Some things have already happened, some are happening now, and others will still happen. Grandma Charlotte said that time is like a book. All the pages already exist, even if we're only reading one at a time." The philosophical depth of the comment, coming from a 6-year-old child, left Emily momentarily speechless. Before she could elaborate more questions, Nathan appeared, announcing that everything was ready for their departure. In the week that followed, Charlotte Mitchell's house was transformed into the center of an intense investigation. Edward mobilized considerable resources, Private investigators, specialists in old documents, even a respected paranormal expert to try to understand the connection between Lily and Charlotte. Cousins Claude and Regina were discreetly placed under surveillance while the search for Laura Preston, the missing historian, extended to England and other European countries. For Emily, however, the greatest transformation was occurring internally. Each new day brought not only revelations about the past, but also a reconnection with parts of herself that she had allowed to lie dormant after the accident. She resumed her architectural drawings, inspired by the discovery that Robert Russell, her biological grandfather, had designed the house she loved so much. Her relationship with Edward was also evolving, albeit cautiously. Decades of emotional distance weren't resolved in a few days, but for the first time there was a genuine openness, a mutual willingness to build something new on the ruins of the past. And then there was Nathan. What had begun as a casual encounter, orchestrated by fate or perhaps by something more, had blossomed into a deep connection that neither of them tried to deny anymore. On a particularly pleasant afternoon, 2 weeks after the revelations, in Edward's office, Emily guided her chair through the garden of the house, following the stone path to the small hedge maze she had loved so much in childhood. Nathan walked beside her, while Lily ran ahead, exploring every corner with the inexhaustible enthusiasm of childhood. "It's still hard to believe everything that's happened," commented Emily, stopping to observe the mountains in the distance. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm not dreaming." Nathan smiled, sitting on a stone bench nearby. "If it's a dream, we're sharing it. And personally, I'm in no hurry to wake up." Emily returned the smile, feeling that familiar warmth that his presence always awakened. "You know what impresses me most? How everything seems to have been carefully orchestrated for us to meet at this specific moment in our lives. As if someone were pulling the invisible strings of destiny," agreed Nathan. "Or perhaps—" "Grandma Charlotte!" shouted Lily, suddenly emerging from behind a bush. "She's here now, watching you." Emily and Nathan looked at each other, a simultaneous shiver running down their spines. "Where, Lily?" asked Emily softly. The girl pointed to an empty space near the old apple tree. "There. She's smiling. Says she's happy because finally the story is being corrected." Lily tilted her head, as if listening to something. "She says she has one more gift for you, Aunt Emily. In the tower room under the floorboard there's another box that you didn't see." That same night, after Lily fell asleep, Emily and Nathan returned to the tower room. Following the girls' instructions, they found a second marked board, hidden even more skillfully than the first. The box they discovered there was smaller, but its contents proved equally valuable. Detailed medical documents about Emily's condition, studies of similar cases where there was recovery, and the contact of a specialist in Zurich whose experimental treatment had shown promising results in injuries like hers. "How is this possible?" murmured Nathan, examining the documents with growing astonishment. "Some of these studies are recent, published after your grandmother." "After she departed," completed Emily, feeling an emotion she couldn't name. It wasn't just hope for the possibility of recovery, but something deeper, the sensation of being loved and protected through time, beyond the limits that separated worlds. 3 months passed quickly. The treatment in Zurich, although exhaustive and sometimes painful, was beginning to show promising results. Emily had regained feeling in her legs and, with intensive help from physical therapy, was taking her first steps supported by parallel bars. The investigation into the accident was also advancing. Laura Preston had finally been located not in England, but in Chile, living under a false name. Her testimony confirmed the suspicions. She had been hired by Claude Mitchell to locate compromising documents about the family, and when she had come too close to the truth, she had been threatened and forced to disappear. The evidence gathered was sufficient for Claude and Regina to face not only criminal proceedings, but also their complete removal from the Mitchell family businesses. On a particularly significant afternoon, exactly 6 months after the encounter at Mountain Cafe, Emily was on the porch of the house, watching Nathan and Lily playing in the garden. There was something in the scene that deeply touched her heart. the child's spontaneity, the father's gentleness, the way both had brought light back to her life when everything seemed lost. With determination, Emily supported herself on the armrests of the chair and slowly stood up. The doctors had recommended that she only try to walk during therapy sessions, but something inside her said this was the right moment. The first step was hesitant, unsure. The second, a little firmer. On the third, she felt she might fall, but persisted. With each new step, she gained more confidence, more balance. Lily was the first to notice, suddenly stopping her run and pointing with wide eyes. "Daddy, look! Aunt Emily is walking like in Grandma's dream." Nathan turned, freezing upon seeing Emily taking slow but determined steps toward them. His face registered a mixture of emotions, amazement, joy, concern. He ran to help her, but Emily made a gesture asking him to wait. "I need to do this alone," she said, concentrating on each movement. When she finally reached them, her legs were trembling with the effort, and tears of emotion were freely flowing down her face. Nathan enveloped her in a careful embrace, as if fearing she might break. "You did it," he murmured against her hair. "We did it," corrected Emily, including Lily in the embrace. "All of us." That night, sitting on the porch under a starry sky, Emily and Nathan finally talked about the future. Not just about medical treatments or investigations, but about possibilities that both had begun to envision. "The house is too big for just one person," commented Emily, observing the facade illuminated by the moon. "It always was, actually." Nathan smiled, understanding the unspoken invitation. "Lily certainly loves this place. I've never seen her as happy as in the last few months." "And you?" asked Emily, turning to face him. "Are you also happy here?" In response, Nathan simply leaned in and kissed her softly. Their first kiss, the official beginning of something that in truth had begun long before them, in another generation. 1 year later, the garden of the house was decorated for a special celebration. White chairs arranged in a semicircle, colorful flowers in every corner, and a small improvised altar near the apple tree, the place where, according to Lily, Charlotte liked to observe the reunited family. Emily waited in the tower room, wearing a simple but elegant dress. Beside her, Edward seemed emotionally awkward in his role as father of the bride. "You look beautiful," he said, trying to find the right words. "Your mother would be proud, and Charlotte too." Emily smiled, adjusting the flower arrangement in her hair. "Thank you, Dad, for everything." She now walked with more confidence, although she still used a cane for longer journeys. The doctors spoke of a miraculous recovery, although Emily knew there was more involved than just advanced medicine. The ceremony was simple and moving. Lily, as the flower girl, walked ahead scattering flower petals. Emily walked the path, to the altar supported by her father's arm, each step an achievement, each movement a celebration. When she finally reached Nathan, who awaited her with misty eyes, Emily felt that a cycle was completing itself. The love that had been denied to Charlotte and Robert was finally finding expression in their grandchildren. During the vows, a gentle and inexplicable breeze stirred the flowers on the altar, although the rest of the garden remained absolutely still. Lily smiled, looking at the empty space beside the apple tree, and whispered something that only Emily managed to hear. "Grandma Charlotte is crying with happiness." And perhaps it was just imagination, a trick of the evening light, but for an instant, Emily had the impression of seeing two figures observing the ceremony, an elegant woman with an impeccable bun and a man with a gentle gaze, holding hands, finally reunited beyond the barriers of time and the conventions that had separated them in life. That night, while the celebration continued in the gardens illuminated by hundreds of small lights, Emily and Nathan escaped for a few moments to the tower room. On the desk they left a carved wooden box, similar to the one that had kept Charlotte's secrets. Inside they placed the beginning of their own story, photographs, letters, a newly begun diary, and 2 ancient rings they had found among Robert Russell's belongings, never used but preserved as a symbol of a love that had transcended time. "For the next generation," said Nathan, carefully closing the box. "So they never Forget how we found our way back to each other? Emily nodded, looking through the window at the starry sky over Pine Valley. It's not an end, she murmured. It's just a new beginning. At the party below, Lily danced with Edward, teaching him improvised steps that made everyone laugh. The house, for so long silent and laden with secrets, now overflowed with life and possibilities. Emily and Nathan returned to join the guests, walking hand in hand through the same corridor where, a year before, they had discovered truths buried for decades. The past had not been erased or forgotten but transformed. No longer a weight to be carried, but a foundation upon which they built something entirely new. And if sometimes they heard unexplained footsteps in the tower room or found Lily's drawings depicting scenes from the past that she couldn't possibly know, they simply smiled, accepting that some connections go beyond what we can understand, crossing time, space, and even the